To close out this unit, we are going to do an in-class writing assignment. Hopefully, this will serve to finalize the unit, give you something sort of to offer closure before we go into break. This will also serve as a nice practice for our ACT test, as well as serve as rough drafts for a number of possible writing assignments for IB. Before we talk about those particulars, though, I did want to go through some writing reminders to make sure we're all kind of on the same page. So the introduction, as a general rule, is in this order. We begin with a lead. Some students learn this as maybe a hook, or you might learn it as an attention grabber. Here at South St. Paul, we refer to it as the lead. Your leads could be a question or set the scene, maybe provide background material. For language arts, for novel essays, it's often easier to give just a quick synopsis of the novel as it pertains to your essay topic, so much like how we did our presentation. The link is just making sure that whatever your lead is moves seamlessly into your thesis. This might be just a clause or a phrase that gets you to that strong thesis. And that thesis needs to be an argument. The difference between writing a paper and an essay is in that thesis component where it's an argument, not a description. And we'll talk about that in a second. And the thesis should clearly answer the prompt and all of the nuances of the prompt. Your POC, we call it, it's a plan of coherence. It's really like a menu or a table of contents, if you will, of the points you're going to make later in your essay. So you want to state your reasons for your argument in the order that you will write about them. And then in-class essays, you can really omit the lead and link, or know that even though this is the order that your reader reads it, it's not necessarily the order that you compose it. More often than not, I don't do the lead or the link until I get to the conclusion, and then I write both. I compose both, and I make sure they kind of tie nicely together. So you would, but if, because this is a timed writing exercise, if you don't get to it, you don't get to it. So just sort of know that this is maybe a better way to look at it is consider it a timed writing exercise rather than essay. So it's a challenge in thinking, but not necessarily, it doesn't always have to be perfect. So for your thesis, you want to make sure that you're making an argument. Some pieces of that argument are sort of absolutes. So you always have to include the author in your thesis, or if you address that author earlier, that's okay as well. So that introduction has to have the author, it has to have the genre of the work, it has to have the title or titles, and then you would identify techniques the author uses, and then the effect of that technique. So for example, if we go back to 1,000 Splendid Suns, Khaled Hosseini uses imagery in the novel 1,000 Splendid Suns is not a thesis, it's an observation. It's a statement of fact. And the reader would just kind of go, yep, he does. And that's not what you want, okay? You have to have an in order to, or something that's sort of arguable. So Khaled Hosseini uses sound imagery during integral scenes of the novel 1,000 Splendid Suns in order to heighten the tension of the novel. Okay, that works. That could be arguable. I could say in refute that maybe it's not to heighten the tension, but to foreshadow the trauma, whatever it might be, so at least there's something arguable. Or Khaled Hosseini uses the symbol of the pebbles in the novel A Thousand Splendid Suns to emphasize the obstacles women must endure in modern Afghan society. Okay, because I could argue that the pebbles is a different symbol. So that works. So, going back to that. So then you would have to come up with obviously your POC, and that would be your 3 reasons. Or in the case of an in-class essay that maybe doesn't make 5 paragraphs, your 2 reasons. Or in case of an in-class essay that makes 6 paragraphs, your 4 reasons. So know that because it's an in-class essay, I'm going to be looking for anything between a 4-paragraph and a 6-paragraph essay. Just depends upon how quickly you can write, how well you can develop your paragraphs, etc. So in your body paragraphs, you want to go in the order that you state your reasons in your introduction. So your topic sentence, which should be early in your paragraph, should include your thesis and the POC point that you are addressing. Then you want to introduce the context of whatever evidence you might have to prove your point. That would be your quotation. Then you would write the quotation and use correctly cited MLA citation. So the C is for that citation. And then E, explain. So if you notice, you have Mr. Bakken taught you the ICE paragraphs. I'm just adding a T for topic sentence, okay? So you want to talk about implications. You want to talk about the techniques, and then sort of broaden that out and consider your analysis further, thinking about how does this further your ideas, or how does it further complicate something, etc. So let's take a look. So our topic sentence, Hosseini uses dialogue tags to indicate power and affection throughout the novel. That's the topic sentence. So I know that dialogue tags is my technique I'm focused on, and the implications is power, okay? Now I need to have some sort of context. In the argument, when Rashid forces Mariam to eat rocks, there's the context of the quotation, and then we get the quotation. Rashid mewled, and later he bellowed as he forces her to chew the pebbles. Hosseini's verbs control the dialogue tags. So that's the explanation. So now we want sort of some implications. His derision of Mariam strongly suggests his lack of love or even care toward her, while his assertive tone indicates his anger and control over her. So then I like to sort of think, well, so what? Well, this sharp tone carries throughout Rashid's characterization, making him unlikable. So what? In contrast, the more aggressive Rashid is toward Mariam, the more sympathetic the reader feels toward her. So what? Any reversal then, when Mariam is more assertive, evokes a little cheer for attempt to gain a little power back. So that's how Hosseini uses dialogue tags to indicate power and affection. Okay, fair enough. So you would repeat that as many times as you have a POC point that you would make. And then you get to the conclusion. And during the conclusion, you want to remind your reader of your key claims or your POC. If possible, show correlation between them. So maybe it's sort of dialogue tags plus this equals power or whatever. And then it's always nice to have a clincher where you answer why the thesis is insightful, or maybe brings us back to the lead, or maybe brings us outward into sort of a societal, like how can this be applied in society? Okay, so some writing expectations when writing formal essays about literature. You want to follow these conventions. You want to make sure you're writing in present tense. That means that if we're writing about Simon Armitage, you're writing Simon Armitage writes, and then you indicate what lines he's writing. In the case of talking about plot points, maybe in A Thousand Splendid Suns, you would say when Rashid hits Mariam, not hit. You maintain present tense. You also want to avoid first and second person pronouns in formal essay writing. That's different from like your commentaries where we would expect maybe first person pronouns. You want to use formal language, so you avoid contractions and slang, no abbreviations, that sort of thing. And then use correct MLA citation, which for poetry looks just like the citation for a novel. You're going to have the author's last name and the line number, or in the case of doing multiple poems, the poem title and the line number. Okay. So what are some benefits of in-class writing? Well, it means you won't have homework because you don't have an essay to write. So you don't have to take all of the time that you normally would take in pre-writing and revising, and more important, procrastinating. All of that stuff kind of goes away because you have just this finite piece of time to write your essay in. The second thing is it prepares you for your ACT, which you'll have writing in April, and you get a half an hour to write your essay in. So I think, or maybe 25 minutes. So this is sort of a nice little quick preparation. Those ACT writing exercises, you actually have to write by hand. So think about that. We'll be able to type our essays this time. We also get to use this potentially as a rough draft if you want for your next year's HL essay. That's exciting. You could use your thinking for this year's presentation in May. It's also going to prepare you for next year's paper 2, which is an in-class essay. And then lastly, it will prepare you for college because you will have in-class essays in college. So hopefully you will see the benefits of this activity. You know that just like for our presentation last trimester, the grade is going to be sort of a 70-30, 60-40 type equivalence. So you're going to get a really nice set of padding for being at the Google Meet, writing your essay during the Google Meet, etc. So kind of just for playing the game. And then you'll have just one segment that will be graded based on the rubric. And that will enable me to be honest on the rubric, but then still maintain a really generous sort of grade curve for you. And I will go over that rubric with you as well. So hopefully these pointers will help you be successful at our in-class writing. Thank you.